You're listening to Trek FM.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to From There to Here. I'm Daniel Proulx, and joining me today is Mike. Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing great. We are here to celebrate 50 years of Star Trek, so we're going through all 700 plus episodes, and today we're going to be talking about two Deep Space Nine episodes, Rejoined and Starship Down. So, Mike, let's just jump right in and get started with Rejoined. What is this episode about?
Rejoined is the episode where a Trill who used to be married to one of Dax's previous hosts, so the two previous hosts were married, she comes aboard the station to work on some sort of insignificant science project, and because it's just an excuse to get the two of them together, and the two of them, Dax and her former spouse, have to basically struggle with the fact that they're still in love with each other, but it's taboo for Trills to associate with each other romantically after they have died and moved to other hosts. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. What did you think about this episode?
It's interesting. Obviously, the the big shebang about this whole thing is the kiss, right? I don't know if we want to just jump right into it or not, but it's complicated because there's a lot of things going on. But we get to learn some more about Trill society and how they kind of function, and it's kind of neat to see the aspect of their culture where they have these taboos, and it makes sense, Julian kind of explains it to, I think, Quark or somebody, I can't remember. But basically just how the Trill, the whole point, is for them to experience different things. So you can kind of see where this kind of culture of non-association, they keep calling it reassociation, so non-reassociation would come from. And you get that idea, and that makes a lot of sense to me. And I thought that was a pretty cool aspect of the whole thing. It feels weird that they just fall in love again like that quickly, because it's 1/10 of each of their personalities. So I don't know what's going on there, but
I mean, I guess so. But at the same time, they do say we have more in common than the other two ever did. And I mean, I can't remember if I was talking with you or someone else about the episode where Dax is like, screw it, I'm going to go live with this guy, as pure energy for the next 65 years. And, and in that episode, I was saying, I don't buy it. I don't buy that she would do that. And, someone actually left a comment online saying, I totally buy that Dax would do that because she's, very impulsive and sort of has a reputation for doing those things and just, and thinking about it, that does kind of make sense. And I can see her kind of jumping into this, with sort of reckless abandon or whatever, and sort of a disregard for Trill, customs or whatever. And I mean, I think that it works on that level. I think that also, obviously what they were trying to do here, this is, one of the first or one of the only episodes of Star Trek, which is, really dealing with LGBT issues, and I think it's actually very effective in that sense because, I mean, it's very, very thinly veiled. There's a social taboo, and these two people have to decide whether or not they want to go against what society tells them they should do and just do what they feel is right. But the fact that they made them two women, I think, is kind of some next level stuff in terms of telling this story, because you're obviously trying to make a point to people who are having a problem with, LGBT, relationships and whatnot. And here they're just putting it right out there, like, these are two women and nobody cares about that. That's not the issue. The issue is this other weird made up thing. But by saying that, like, this real world thing is completely fine with everyone except for Quark, who seems to have some sort of weird thing, but whatever. It's basically commenting on what they're commenting on. It's very meta, and I think it works really well in that sense.
One thing, it didn't really bother me when I was watching the episode, but I was thinking about it, and I'm like, it's not really reassociation because these people are different people. But that gets way into like how trills are perceived and how they perceive each other, and that's like, a whole other thing. What they do here with the two women is obviously it's one of the biggest potential that Trill have as a species, right, is that you can play around with this kind of gender fluidity stuff, and obviously they're just going to go right forward in this episode, and I think it works tremendously well. Is the same when we first saw the Trill in the episode that I can't remember the name of, but from TNG.
The Host? I think
the
it's
Host.
The Host.
Yes, thank you. When they did this same kind of thing slightly. They played with the gender thing a little bit right at the end, and obviously a very different outcome in that episode. This one's much stronger on that front, I think. But they have this whole foundation here that they get to work with, so it's cool. Like I said, I really like this. Sometimes the Trill stuff doesn't really work for me that great, but here I think it works really well.
Yeah. I for whatever reason, was never really a huge fan of this episode. Not that I ever thought it was bad, but it never really struck me as being tremendously great. But watching it this time, I appreciated it a lot more than I have in the past for whatever reason. And I think it was pretty solid.
It also is weird that they named one of the characters Khan. I just feel like they shouldn't do that. I don't know. It's just something you shouldn't do. Like, of all the things you could do, why would you do that?
Yeah, just make Khan off limits. I can see that.
Yeah, it just makes you turn your head like for the wrong reasons in the episode. Like, what, Khan? What is he doing there? But that's okay.
Also, this episode was directed by Avery Brooks, and Avery Brooks always seems like a really weird director to me because he always puts weird camera movements and stuff in it, which are extremely dramatic in scenes where they seem to have no place, like these crazy tracking shots or zooms or whatever, and you're like, whoa, something huge is going to happen here, and then it's just like, oh, this person's saying hi to this other person. It's very bizarre. I like it, but it's very bizarre and very not typical Star Trek, and
much like Avery Brooks himself, I guess, right?
There you go. I did hear there was one convention where I was at where someone, I think it was Rene Auberjonois or something, was talking to him about he was directing Rene Auberjonois, and he was having trouble with this scene. So Avery Brooks goes up to him because he sees that he's having trouble, and as a director, he just says, "Slalom." And Rene Auberjonois is like, oh yeah, cool, I get it now, and then he did the scene, and it worked out well. So there you go, crazy guy.
Yeah, crazy guy. One last thing I just wanted to bring up, because we talked about it the last time we had the show together. Eddington shows up again.
Yeah.
And I like Eddington. I like him a lot. I like good Eddington, and we'll see what happens to him. But so I just have to point him out that he's there. Yeah,
he's a nice guy, a reliable officer who you can always count on.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, nothing bad will happen there. So that's it for Rejoined. Do you have anything else on that, or should we move on to the next one?
We can move on to the next one.
And the next episode is Starship Down. Cisco defends a Karema ship when it is attacked by the Gem Hadar. What do you think about this episode, Mike? I'm curious to hear.
I like this episode quite a bit. I think it's a lot of fun. It's another one of those sort of bottle shows, kind of like a, I don't know, would it be like the Poseidon Adventure or something like that, where they're all sort of on a sinking ship essentially, and trying to survive and paired off, and I think that there's a lot of cool stuff in there. There's a lot of suspense, a lot of excitement and everything, but I also like the character dynamics which are at play, in particular Worf with the engineers, and Quark with James Cromwell there. That's a pretty great sequence. And then also the stuff, especially the end scene with Sisko and Kira, I think is pretty great. And Sisko making the effort to sort of reach out to Kira and befriend her, on the same level that he befriends the other officers. I think it's a pretty solid episode, I have to say.
I don't love it. I don't love this episode. There are bits I do like. I do like the Quark Cromwell, the Quarkwell. I think that's their ship name now. I like their stuff. I like the Worf engineering stuff too, but that's very small. And I like the end scene when Sisko invites Kira to the baseball game. But honestly, I was a little bored during most of this. I don't really know why. It feels like weird Deep Space Nine to me because none of this really matters, which is kind of unusual for Deep Space Nine. Like you said, this is a bottle show, and this has several flavors of disaster, written all over it, which is good. But I don't know why. I don't know. Other than, of course, this is kind of slightly furthering the Ferengi move into the Dominion territory financial sector stuff, but I don't know. Not my favorite episode of Deep Space Nine for sure.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It does seem to not really tie into the whole story here, and I think we're seeing a lot of that in this sort of like section. The first, let's say, quarter of season 4. It's weird. I talked about this a couple days ago with Richard, but Way of the Warrior, was sort of like a hand which was dealt to them, and what they were really trying to start the season with was Homefront and Paradise Lost, and they weren't able to do that until like episode 8 or something. So this stretch that we're in right now, with Rejoined and Starship Down, and a few episodes that we see in the next coming days, they are all sort of like little character pieces and stuff like that, sort of fun shows in a lot of ways, and they don't really tie into the larger arc. And I think in some ways they were just trying to like bide their time until they could get to the next big thing. But that being said, I do think that a lot of these little individual standalone episodes are really, really good, and I would put both Rejoined and Starship Down in that category.
Yeah, I guess since they're on the Defiant, instead of a bottle episode, I guess it's more of a mini bottle episode. I don't know what a mini bottle would be, but haha, I like to make Defiant jokes.
It's like one of those like airplane bottles. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yes, a mini bar. This is a mini bar. Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I don't hate it. For certainly, there was nothing offensive about it. It was just, the Jadzia and Bashir stuff didn't really do anything for me. But it is what it is. So, if you don't have anything else about Rejoined or Starship Down, can you tell the listeners where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me right here on Trek FM doing Stage 9 with John Mills, where we talk about the people who make Star Trek. And you can also find me on Twitter at Mumbles3K.
And you can find me on Twitter as well, at OneUpDan. That's the number 1, not the word. And tomorrow, Mike and I will be talking one Deep Space Nine and one Voyager episode. We'll start with Tattoo and move to Little Green Men.